You've been lied to. Right now, there's a fact sitting in your brain, something a teacher told you, something you've repeated 100 times, and it is completely embarrassingly wrong. And the worst part? Almost everyone believes it too. Today, we're blowing up 20 of the biggest myths in science and astronomy. I'm FactSpark. Hit subscribe so you don't miss what comes next. Let's start with something you've probably heard your whole life. There's no gravity in space. Wrong. Dead wrong. Astronauts on the International Space Station aren't floating because gravity disappeared. They're floating because they're in a constant state of free fall. The station travels at roughly 766 kilometers per second, at about 400 kilometers above Earth, moving so fast that as it falls toward our planet, Earth's surface curves away beneath it. It's falling forever without hitting the ground. Every single object in the universe has gravity. The more mass something has, the stronger its pull. Even you, yes you, are pulling every other object in the universe toward you right now. It's just not very impressive. We never went to the moon. This one refuses to die. More than 400,000 people worked on the Apollo program. The equipment left on the lunar surface, including laser reflectors that scientists still bounce beams off today, is sitting there right now, waiting to be pinged. Over 400 kilograms of moon rocks were brought back, studied by independent laboratories worldwide. 6 separate missions, 12 human beings walked on the moon between 1969 and 1972. There was no conspiracy. There was just engineering, courage, and an extraordinary amount of math. A day lasts exactly 24 hours.
Actually, Earth completes one full rotation in 23 hours and 56 minutes. The 24-hour system is a human invention inherited from ancient Egypt, refined by the Sumerians, and kept alive because it's convenient. What we actually measure when we say a day is the time it takes for the sun to return to the same position in the sky, not the time Earth takes to spin once. To paper over the difference, we invented leap years and a whole calendar system that is, frankly, a beautiful mess. We keep it because changing it would cost an unimaginable amount of money and chaos. Now here's a question I want you to answer in the comments right now, and be honest. Which of the myths we've covered so far did you personally believe before watching this video? Drop it below. You'd be surprised how many people share the same wrong answer. Keep watching because the next one might be the most misunderstood idea in all of science. Humans evolved from monkeys. We didn't. Not from any monkey or ape alive today. What actually happened is that humans and modern apes, chimpanzees, gorillas, share a common ancestor that lived roughly 7 million years ago. At some point, that ancient lineage split. One branch eventually became the great apes we know today. The other became hominins, upright walking primates with increasingly complex hands and minds. The genus Homo appeared around 2.5 million years ago, using tools and showing early signs of intelligence. Every other human species in that genus eventually went extinct. Only Homo sapiens is still here, telling itself myths about where it came from. The Great Wall of China is visible from space. No, it isn't. The wall stretches over 7,300 kilometers. Impressive, yes.
But it's only about 6 meters wide in most places, and its color blends almost perfectly with the surrounding terrain. Astronauts have confirmed they cannot spot it with the naked eye from orbit. You know what is visible from space? Major highways, airport runways, even the pyramids of Giza, because they're enormous and sit in open desert. The wall is magnificent, but the space visibility story is just a good myth that survived long enough to feel like a fact. The solar system is the sun plus 9, or now 8, planets. The solar system is so much bigger than that. It extends roughly 100,000 astronomical units from the sun, stretching past the Kuiper Belt, where Pluto lives, all the way to the Oort cloud, a vast shell of frozen objects sitting at the very edge of the sun's gravitational reach, at distances of up to 2,000 astronomical units. The planets are just the famous residents. The solar system is the entire neighborhood, and the neighborhood goes on for an almost incomprehensible distance. An apple fell on Newton's head. There is no reliable record of Isaac Newton being struck by an apple. Newton himself never described the event in his own writings. What we have are second-hand accounts, references passed from one author to another, and a tree that's been romantically named and preserved. The real story is far less dramatic. Newton spent years working through the mathematics of gravity, slowly, carefully, building a framework that would define physics for centuries. No dramatic apple needed. Great ideas are almost never born in a single moment. They're grown, slowly, like an apple tree. You're still here. Good.
Because we're only halfway through, and the next few are the ones that even people who think they're science literate get completely wrong. You'd explode in space without a suit. Hollywood loves this one. The truth is far stranger and grimmer. If you were suddenly exposed to the vacuum of space, you would not explode. Your skin and circulatory system are strong enough to hold you together. What would happen is this. Within about 15 seconds, you'd lose consciousness as your lungs collapsed. There's no air pressure to keep them inflated. Your body might swell slightly. Depending on whether you are in sunlight or shadow, you'd begin to either freeze or cook. Within about a minute, you'd be dead, a dried, rigid body drifting silently through the void. Horrifying, but not explosive. A full moon makes people act strange. Despite centuries of folklore, werewolf legends, and worried nurses on hospital night shifts, there is no scientific evidence that the full moon influences human behavior. Controlled studies have looked at crime rates, emergency room admissions, birth rates, and psychiatric episodes. None show a consistent link to lunar cycles. The moon is genuinely beautiful, and its gravity does affect Earth's tides, but it does not make you weird. Gravity is a force. In Newtonian physics, yes, we treat gravity as a force of attraction between masses, but Einstein showed us something deeper. Gravity isn't really a force being transmitted between objects. It's a consequence of mass warping the geometry of space-time. Imagine a heavy ball placed on a stretched rubber sheet. It creates a dip, and smaller objects roll toward it. That's what mass does to the fabric of space-time.
Objects don't get pulled toward each other so much as they follow the curves that mass creates in space itself. It's one of the most mind-bending ideas in all of physics, and we still casually call it a force because that's easier. The Big Bang was an explosion. It wasn't. The name is misleading, and it was actually coined somewhat sarcastically by astronomer Fred Hoyle, who didn't even believe the theory. The Big Bang wasn't a giant explosion that threw matter outward through existing space. It was an expansion of space itself, starting from an almost incomprehensibly small and dense state. There was no location where it happened. Space simply began expanding, and it never stopped. Mars is red. Partly. Mars has reddish and orange tones due to iron oxide, rust, on its surface. But the planet is also home to gray, brown, and tan landscapes, and its sky is actually closer to a butterscotch or pinkish hue than the dramatic crimson we see in stylized images. NASA has historically processed some Mars photos to enhance the red tones, which deepened the myth. The real Mars is more dusty and brown than you'd expect. The Milky Way is made of milk. Obviously not, but the name does come from mythology. In ancient Greek legend, the band of light across the night sky was said to be milk spilled from the breast of the goddess Hera. The Romans called it the Via Lactea, the Milky Way. What it actually contains is hundreds of billions of stars, vast clouds of gas and dust, plasma, and interestingly, astronomers have found a massive cloud of methanol, a type of alcohol, at least 400 billion kilometers wide near the galactic center. The universe is black. When you look at the night sky, it looks black between the stars.
But researchers at Johns Hopkins University analyzed the light output of over 200,000 galaxies and calculated the average color of the observable universe. The result? The universe is the color of your morning coffee with too much milk in it. Asteroid belts are dense and dangerous like in the movies. In science fiction films, spacecraft weave frantically through asteroid belts packed with tumbling rocks. The reality is hilariously different. The asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter contains roughly 1 million objects, but the average distance between each one is about 5 million kilometers. That is 13 times the distance between Earth and the Moon. A spacecraft flying through the asteroid belt would almost certainly never come close to a single rock. The dramatic navigation scene in the movie? Pure fiction. Black holes suck everything in. Black holes don't behave like cosmic vacuum cleaners. They're simply objects with an enormous amount of mass compressed into a small space, and they follow the same gravitational rules as everything else. If you replaced the sun with a black hole of the same mass, Earth would continue orbiting exactly as it does now. Nothing would change except, total darkness and the end of all life. The sucking only becomes relevant if an object crosses the event horizon, the point of no return, which requires a direct collision course, not just proximity. Nuclear weapons could destroy an incoming asteroid. In the movies, we blow up the space rock, everyone cheers, credits roll.
In reality, a nuclear weapon detonated on or near a large asteroid would most likely break it into several large chunks, each of which would continue on roughly the same trajectory toward Earth, now as a scattered shotgun blast instead of a single bullet. The approach scientists actually favor is a gravity tractor method, flying a spacecraft near the asteroid for a long period and using the subtle gravitational pull between them to slowly nudge its orbit. Boring, slow, and far more likely to actually work. Jupiter orbits the Sun. Technically, neither Jupiter nor the Sun orbit each other in the traditional sense. Jupiter is so massive that the gravitational center of mass between Jupiter and the Sun, called the barycenter, actually lies outside the surface of the Sun itself. So what really happens is that both the Sun and Jupiter orbit this shared center point in space. Jupiter doesn't go around the Sun, they dance around each other. Climate change is a hoax. It isn't. The scientific evidence is overwhelming, cross-verified by thousands of independent research institutions across the world. Human activity, specifically the burning of fossil fuels since the Industrial Revolution, has been raising global temperatures beyond natural variation. The transition to renewable energy isn't about destroying economies, it's about building cleaner, more efficient ones, and making sure the planet we leave behind is still habitable. The data is real, the change is measurable, and the window to act is not infinite. The pyramids were built by aliens. This myth is, at its core, an insult to human ingenuity. We have found the tools, we have found the workers' villages, we have found administrative records.
We know that workers used wet sand to dramatically reduce friction when dragging enormous stone blocks across the desert. We know the organizational systems, the logistics chains, the food supplies. Ancient people weren't less intelligent than us, they simply had different technology. They solved the same problems we face using patience, creativity, and remarkable collective effort. The pyramids don't need aliens, they need respect. Every single thing we've covered today was once repeated so many times it became accepted as fact. That's how misinformation works, not through grand conspiracies, but through repetition, convenience, and a reluctance to question what we were taught. The most powerful thing you can do as a human being is update your beliefs when the evidence changes. I'm FactSpark. If this cracked something open for you, hit like, subscribe, and share this with someone who still believes one of these myths. Leave a comment with the one that surprised you most. See you in the next one.